Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to talk about major chords. We're going to go back to the basics and talk about chord building. This will be a series called Structured Practice. So we're going to take one concept and go through all 12 keys because that is something that's super important. Anytime you learn something new on the piano, especially, you want to take it through all 12 keys because each key is going to look different, feel a little different. The shapes will be a little bit different, but the concepts will need to translate across all 12 keys if you want to really get good at the piano. So we're going to start with something very basic, the major chord, okay? So this is a C major chord with the right hand. So it's made up of C, E, and G. Now, how do we get there is the question. So the way you build a major chord is you start with any note. So it's basically a three-step process. Start with any note. So we're going to go to a C in this case, and then we're going to count up 4 half steps from this note. So we're not going to count the C. We're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's our second note in the 3-note major chord, okay? So that's our second note, C and E. And then we're going to count up 3 half steps. 1, 2, 3. So we start with the note, which is C, count up 4 half steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then count up 3 half steps, 1, 2, 3. So that's where we get our 3-note chord, C, E, and G. And it sounds very happy, very harmonious, right? Very sunny, nice, happy chord. This is a major chord. And with our left hand, what is a good rule of thumb as a starting point is to do the shell of the chord, basically, is what I like to call it. So instead of doing all 3 notes, we're going to leave out the middle note because as you get lower on the piano, the notes need to be spread out further and further because the lower notes take up a lot more space. So to have a triad way down here doesn't sound that great, right? In that same position, we want to spread out the notes a little bit. So if it was down here, we could leave out the E, and that would sound okay, right? Or even right here. So we're gonna just leave out the middle note as a starting point. That's a great starting point. So we're having a C and a G with our left hand, C, E, G with our right hand. Okay, so we can take this through all 12 keys. So let's go to the G chord. G chord. We want to start with a G because that's the name of our chord, right? Count up 4 half steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's our second note in the triad. Count up 3 half steps is our third step in the process. 1, 2, 3. So we have G, B, and D, and you can start to hear the sound of it sounds very similar to the other chord, right? As far as the quality, it sounds happy, sounds very bright and sunny. And then with our left hand, what we could do is the G and the D. We can leave out the B. We don't need the B at this point because it's going to be in the lower register, all right? So a G, B, and a D makes up a G chord. Now, what I'm using as a reference is the circle of fifths. If you're not familiar with this, I'll put it on the screen right now. So the circle of fifths is a great practice tool to make sure you're not missing any chords and to make sure you're hitting all of your chords along the way. And it also kind of like builds up in a step-by-step way as far as the sharps go. We're not going to get into the whole thing right now, but I'm going to use this as a tool to learn all of our chords. Okay, so let's go to the D chord next. Okay, so that's the next one in the circle. So we're going to count up 4 half steps. Start with D. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. So we have D, F sharp, and A as our D chord. The left hand can do this. So that's the process. Another way of thinking about this, real quick, I'll stop for a second and talk about one other way to think about building a major chord is if you know all of your major scales, which I would really encourage you to do that, learn all of your major scales, which is something like this, right? That would be a C major scale, for instance. So another way to think about building a major chord is you could basically start with the root of the scale and then skip the 2 and you're on the 3rd note in the scale and then skip the 4th note and you're on the 5th note in the scale. So 1, 3, and 5 within the C major scale, right? So therefore, if you went to the D scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that's our D scale. So you could do 1, skip the 2 and go to the 3, skip the 4 and go to the 5. So basically every other note in your scale makes a chord, right? So if you start on the root of the scale, that is your D major chord. But also you could do the things that we already talked about, which is start with the note 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that's a D major chord. Sounds happy. Okay, now the challenge is up to you. Let's go to the A chord. It's the next one in the circle of fifths. So we're starting with the A note. Now, what is our next note? We're going to have 3 notes, so you tell me. We have A, second step, count up 4 half steps as the second step. and then count up 3 half steps. And the left hand can do the shell of the chord, just the 1 and the 5th, or the root and the 5th. That's our A chord. Okay, we'll just keep going through these really quick. E, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Here's our E chord. I'm gonna hit every one of these so you can just have a quick reference. So you can rewind this later if you need to. B chord. Start with the note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. The left hand falls into place, okay? How about the F sharp chord? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So you start to see these shapes are looking very different than when we started, but the concept is the same. So it doesn't really matter what it looks like. The shapes might change. They might look a little bit different. They might have different sharps and then natural keys, right? White or black keys. But the sound is still a major chord, okay? So that's the key. They might look different, but it's about how we got there, right? Let's go to the next one. So this is C sharp. C sharp. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's our second note in this chord. 1, 2, 3. C sharp chord. Very good. Okay, let's keep going. The next chord is A flat. Got an A flat note. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Left hand falls into place. So it's not as scary as it seems at first, right? Once you actually go through this process. How about E flat? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. And we have our E flat chord. Or you could do the scale. If we know our scale, skip the second note in the scale, skip the 4th note in the scale, 1, 3, 5 of the E flat scale, and that's our E flat major chord. It's just another way to think about it, right? How about the B flat chord? Start with the B flat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. All right, and you can pause this too if you want to try to do it yourself, right? And our left hand falls into place on the 1 and the 5th. Sounds happy, sounds good, right? How about the F chord? This is our last one. So we have an F note. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. And the left hand falls into place right there. So this is our F chord. Okay, so now what we want to do, let's assume that you've kind of gone through and learned all of these. You can stop this and work on it and then come back to it. But this is a good way to practice this is with a metronome. Once you start to identify these shapes, go through this a couple times, maybe many times, just kind of getting these chords in your head, getting these shapes. And then this is kind of the test to see if you really know them. So you can put a metronome to it. You can do this on your phone. There's a lot of free metronomes out there, free apps. I have one called Pro Metronome, and right now I'm actually using Ableton just to give me a click track, okay? This is 80 beats per minute, and I'm gonna do 2 beats per chord. So C chord, F chord, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, F sharp, B, E, A, D, G, and back to C. So that's kind of like your final test to see if you really can identify these chords quickly, play them in time, and then of course you could speed up. You could do something like, just basically run through each chord. To see if you really can do that, then you know all 12 major chords, and then you can move on to the next step. And maybe you already know some of them, but this is a way to really see if you know all 12 of them. And so I hope this helps to really dial in and learn all of your major chords. And I have a whole series on these. I'm going to do minor chords. I'm going to do add 2 chords, suspended chords, 7 chords, a lot of different types of chords in this series. So if you've already conquered this one, go ahead and click on this video and go to the next type of chord and see if you can dial it in all 12 keys. I also have a free PDF you can download on how to build major and minor chords. So if you would like to do that, I'll have that link below. Free PDF. Go ahead and download that to help you in your practice. Thanks so much, and we'll see you in the next video.